Has anyone ever given a nice guy a chance after they've thrown a tantrum because you didn't let them treat you like a queen? And if you did, how did it work out?
Story 1. Even in the comments, most of these guys turn out to be super manipulative. My sister had a nice guy friend in high school. At first he was a great guy, but as he got more impatient with her deciding whether or not to date him, he became very manipulative. So since we're just friends, I guess it was okay for me to go to VS with my ex and watch her try on lingerie. Even though we broke up, my opinion still matters to her because I'm such a good guy. My innocent and self-conscious sister who didn't want to sound like a control freak, no, I guess that's cool. 1 week later, they're dating. Mean comments all throughout the relationship. By the way, my friends think you're stupid, but I defended you. By the way, my brother thinks you're a B, but I defended you. Now my brother and I aren't talking. You matter more. On the phone, sister talking about her day, boyfriend barely paying attention. Wow, cool, okay, wait, what? Sorry, playing video games. Sister sincerely, oh, well, if you're busy, I can call you back later. Blow up. Are you serious? You really think I'd rather play games than talk to you? That's what you think of me? Are you really that shallow? Frick you! Click. After that, I told her to dump him, but he called back crying and apologizing, so she gave him another chance. Eventually, she broke up with him, and the next day he skipped school and had his friends tell her that he slit his wrists last night and was in the ICU because of her. She called me, saying I needed to take her to the hospital to see him. I showed up at the school with a peach Bellini to calm her down. Low alcohol. She was only a junior after all, what her older sister's for. She was all, okay, so which hospital is he at? I explained that he wasn't in the ICU, he was home playing video games. She didn't believe me. He had already blocked her on Facebook, but I was still his friend, so I showed her all his posts from that day. Taking some me time, guys. I finally beat Final Fantasy, home alone, s'mores for lunch. Yeah, she never talked to him again. Guys, this blew up. Thank you all for your support and attaboys, attagirls. You are the kind of big sister I truly admire. Oh yeah, no, this guy sounds like a total donk. And let's get this out of the way right at the top of the video. There are genuinely nice guys out there, and some of them might just not know how to act. They might be awkward and a little too overbearing or, too worried about screwing things up. And they'll make mistakes, and sometimes they are nice guy mistakes. I did that when I was younger, teenage 20-something me. I screwed up at times, but I've, had people point that out, and I've reflected and hopefully gotten better. And a lot of you can too if you've had the same kind of things thrown your way. So just know, we're pointing out some of the worst cases here, I imagine, but it doesn't mean that it applies to everyone. And for a lot of you, you can improve yourself. You can get better. Just take feedback and all that stuff, all right? There.
Story 2. Yeah, it was my first and last Tinder date. I went to the guy's house, figured it would be safe since he had 2 roommates. He lived with these roommates for 6 months, and when I asked him their names, he couldn't tell me. First red flag. I was like, how? Any sane person would give some attempt to learn their roommates' names. It's not like he was in the basement suite. He shared many common areas with them. When I got there, his house was barely furnished. There was a large TV in the living room and no seating whatsoever. He quickly scrambled upstairs to get 2 child-sized egg chairs and planted them in front of the TV. The TV was playing a movie that was mostly adult entertainment, super inappropriate for a first date. I figured he was trying to get me frisky. It just made me uncomfortable, as did the egg chair I didn't fit in. He promptly signaled for me to come sit on his lap. I figured it might be more comfortable than the chair I was in. At one point he went in for a kiss, and I thought, what the heck, might as well try to enjoy myself. It was awful. All I could feel were his teeth and his lizard tongue punching my uvula. I actually had to hold back gags. After that, I waited about 15 minutes before signaling that I was going to leave, mostly to preserve his feelings. So, after the date, I messaged him saying I couldn't see a second date happening. I was as nice as humanly possible. He lost it. You're just a W. Didn't want you anyways. Now you're showing your true colors. And then switched to, I love you though. I was gonna bring you to Greece. He flip-flopped between those two states and called me, no answer, every 3 minutes until I blocked him on everything. I deleted Tinder. I read uvula as vulva and was wondering how bad he could have been it was making you gag.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, if you're doing that to the point where it's making someone gag, whoa. But on a more serious note, yeah, these people where anyone that says that they're a nice guy, first off, if you go around telling people that you're a nice guy, or you complain to women that, as soon as you're rejected, you're like, women always say they want a nice guy, but then one comes around. No nice person has ever said that about themselves. You've immediately, you're not throwing out truth, you're just throwing up red flags. But when you have a problem with someone and you're immediately just like, you know what, you're a B, you're this and that. You were never a nice guy. Just, jeez.
Story 3. Finally my time to shine, I guess? In high school, I briefly dated a nice guy, complete with an actual fedora in 2000 before they were really a thing. Thanks, art school. I had been in a really horrible, abusive relationship with a guy in his 20s just before, and in fairness, my nice guy, then friend, had been instrumental in helping me realize how fricked up our vibe was and helping me to leave an objectively horrible situation. Then, he promptly swooped in and started pushing for romantic intimacy between us. He never actually declared feelings, he was never that straightforward about his own thoughts and desires, just talked about the way I deserved to be treated, like a queen, obviously, and made it clear he felt he was the only one who would give me that. Many of my friends were pushing for it as well. He was nice after all, and my previous boyfriends had been so objectively awful, I felt a lot of obligation and kind of went along on autopilot. There was a lot of negotiation around anything intimate. I treat you so well, don't you want to? From him, and I know you want to treat me like a lady, so you'll be okay to take it slow, from me. One of the hardest parts was that he clearly wasn't out to hurt me or to frick me. The intimacy acts between us, we never slept together, but did other things that seemed like a huge deal to teenaged me, were only a demonstration, proof that I loved him. That was what he wanted. But I didn't, and I really thought that meant there was something wrong with me. In the end, I only lasted about a month. He decorated my locker, brought flowers, and left notes for me taped to my desk in each of my classes to celebrate our fricking 1-month anniversary. I was mortified. My math teacher caught a good look at my face before I managed to plaster a smile back on as I opened the note he had left in her class. She asked me to stay back after what turned out to be one of the most important talks of my life. Mrs. Brown, just the best. I felt panicked, telling her over and over how happy and lucky I was. She kept asking questions until I burst into tears and it all just came out. I don't really remember what all she said, but I remember her saying, it's okay to be alone. She said it over and over, like Robin Williams going, it's not your fault, in Good Will Hunting. And soon enough I was. Broke up with him, kindly but firmly, and about 5 different times before he accepted it. He cried, he got angry, absurdly, insanely, his mom called my mom, who dropped the hammer on her in a way I haven't seen before or since. I took a ton of crap at school for breaking his heart and ruining his life, but I felt so free that I didn't really mind. I dated around, but didn't have a boyfriend again until I was 21. It was truly okay and important and necessary to be alone. I'm super curious why his mom would call and also what your mom said. Seems like a very interesting conversation, LOL.
Folks, just try not to push for relationships. Like, if you express interest in someone and they're not reciprocating, just badgering them or being like, come on, look how nice I am, look how nice, don't you want to be with someone who's like excited to be with you and wants to be with you and stuff? And if it's just like, oh, well, they just don't realize it yet, okay, then just keep being their friend, but without further expectations. Be genuinely their friend. I don't know. And if you never end up dating, you're still friends, and that's great, and you're actually a nice person. I don't know. This doesn't seem too hard, but I get it. Romance is complicated, feelings are hard, but take these moments to self-reflect. If this seems to be the situation, think about it.
Story 4. It was my first experience on OkCupid. The guy seemed okay on paper. We swapped non-nude pictures so none of us would be surprised with the way we looked. We talked on Skype for 2 weeks because at the time I was in Campus Town and scrolling through OkCupid for my hometown. I told him would be back home after finals and that it would take 2 to 3 weeks before we could meet in person. It was good to talk to someone who wasn't outright trying to fetishize me. I don't remember the convos, but I thought it was good enough to meet him in person. Anyway, so we met. I got dressed up and he was in a t-shirt and cargo pants. I bought us both a latte. It was a coffee date. We sat down and he talked mostly about himself and his job. At some point he stood up, walked behind me, and started giving me a shoulder rub while I was seated. I never asked for a massage, and why would I accept one in public? I got bored, so I held a family supper to leave, and he was like, "Oh, too bad, I could have brought you home," and I thought I told him already it wasn't going to happen so soon. I decided to let him know on Skype that there wasn't any spark and that I wished him good luck on OkCupid. And he exploded at me. How all women are the same. We want nice, gentle guys, but won't give them a chance. How sparks are made up by rom-com to trick women, and in real life it doesn't happen instantly. How I led him on because we talked for and now I just decided not to push it further. How he's done with women, and so on. Then he blocked me. How all women are the same. We want nice, gentle guys, but won't give them a chance. I love how in his creepy mind, literally going on a date somehow isn't being given a chance. Story 5. Met a guy online and he seemed really nice. He was a tad pushy about meeting up, but I ignored that little feeling. We met up shortly after for a quick date. I think we got coffee and chatted. It was instant chemistry. He had 2 sons and I have 2 kids, both open to blended families, goal-oriented, smart, easy conversation. We decided to go out again the next night, a really nice date, and he was a complete gentleman. He mentioned on the date we'd have to get the kids together to see if they liked each other. I laughed it off like, yeah, maybe down the road, we just met, and continued the date. 2 days later, during our texting, I casually mentioned I was going to take my kids on a nature walk and I'd text him when I was back. He shows up with his kids. Now, I don't have it in me to be mean to children, so I played nice and introduced myself. They were around 5 and 7 and very sweet boys, but inside I was creeped the frick out. After we parted ways, I called him and told him that was not cool at all. Of course, he played victim and hurt until I said I was uncomfortable with what he did. Then it was, "I'm just trying to love you and your kids. How can we be together if they don't meet? And you should appreciate a man trying with a woman with 2 kids." As if he didn't have 2 his dang self. He sent angry messages for about a week. I never would respond, and he went away. To clarify, this all happened in a 2-week span from start to finish. Like that secondhand quote I saw in a comment, "If this were a train, I would pull the emergency brakes because it's going way too effing fast."
I mean, I don't have kids, and I've never really dated anyone with kids, so I can see where for this person it might be important, like, well, hey, if I'm going to get invested in a relationship, I want to know that our kids could get along too or something. Like, I can see where that'd be important, but if the other person's like, well, I want to take things a little bit slower, let's not do that step yet, you need to respect that. I mean, that's that. You don't get to suddenly make that call. And if they keep pushing it off to the point where you're like, it seems like it's just not going to happen and everything, well, then maybe you're not meant to be with that person. So still don't just make it happen because you want to.
Story 6. I didn't, but my friend did. See, me and this guy had a mutual friend. This guy saw himself as a white knight and would use that term to describe himself. He had a code of honor, and he was always somebody who'd walk the girl home, lend out his jacket, that sort of thing. Well, mutual friend was asked out by this guy, and he threw a fit when she turned him down. So she gave him a chance. At first, she was happy. He pulled out chairs, lent her his jacket, brought her gifts, that kind of thing. But it became apparent that he was incredibly possessive and things were always on his terms, so they broke up. About 6 months after this guy was dumped, he decided he liked me. Telling him I wasn't interested didn't work the first or second time, so the third time I decided to just come out and tell him I was asexual. I hadn't done so before because I wasn't sure how he'd take it. He decided that I was lucky he was such a nice guy because if he wasn't, then he'd have taken that as a challenge. I haven't hung out with this guy since then. Just no. The old, most guys would just, but I'm not going to because I'm nice. The you're lucky I'm nice just sounds ary and super condescending. Story 7. He didn't throw a tantrum, but other people convinced me that I needed to start giving the nice guys a chance. I didn't really find him attractive, but he was really nice to me, so I was just like, okay, fine. And then on to 2 years of a toxic abuse relationship. He was always right, always belittling me, always reminding me that time I felt uncomfortable with something or upset about something. It wasn't because he was doing something wrong, it was because I had an abusive childhood and I just didn't understand what real relationships were like. I went to bed crying every night. I remember he never wanted to have intercourse, except the only times he wanted to have intercourse was after he broke me down and I cried myself to sleep. Then he'd come to bed saying, "I just love you so much. You're so amazing, the best." I felt so unloved and desperate for affection. I'd have intercourse with him, but feel so empty and alone afterwards. It wasn't until I was free of that relationship I realized how fricked up it was. I'm still trying to forgive myself for allowing myself to be in that situation for so long. I'm so happy I escaped. Yes, I've had partners use the excuse of, "Oh, this is normal, you just don't know because you were abused as a kid." Even through extensive therapy, I still fall prey to that nonsense. Now I just stay single. I'm much happier that way. I hope you find happiness, either in a couple or not. Story 8. I had a guy who would constantly ask me out or make really awkward advances for like a year plus. I finally hit a pretty low point after coming out of a relationship and agreed to go out on a date. He seemed actually kind of nice, and we ended up dating and lived together for a bit. It all turned sour though when he realized that all his cute punk girl bull crap he had projected onto me, that I wasn't who I am and I wasn't changing to what he wanted me to be, and then all of a sudden he was out with friends constantly and coming home drunk. The morning he came home around 6 a.m. telling me he kissed another woman and finally woke me up, and I left him. He would still send me messages for months after we broke up, not acknowledging my replies, saying I have a boyfriend and it's inappropriate to say these things. Even now, if I unblock him from social media, I'll get a message within a few days saying things like, "Hey, still beautiful, I see," or "Hey, cutie/sweetie," etc., etc., and he gets blocked again. Ugh. This one is nuts. He apparently won the 10 no's and a yes is still a yes game. You went out with him after he was persistent and you all seriously dated. He finds out that you're not the person he wants you to be, not that you need to be, frick that. He then sabotages the relationship and now he's still carrying the torch years later. Like, dang, dude.
I've sadly seen a lot of guys who they get more infatuated with their idea of a woman and what they think they'll be like and what they think the relationship will be, so much so that it's kind of detached from reality. And once again, this is something where I'd encourage you, guys or girls, if you're pining after someone and they're not interested and kind of, rebuffing you and everything, take some time to really truly examine that. Talk with someone that you trust and make sure that you're not just more infatuated with the idea of them than you actually are with them. And even if you are truly in love with them and they're not interested, if you love that person, you need to respect that.
Story 9. I was celebrating my last day in a city I had lived in for 4 years and had invited a bunch of friends out for a night on the town. And one of these friends was a self-proclaimed chauvinist who insisted on walking on the outside of the sidewalk. So I thought it was uncomfortable that he kept on switching to the outside as I didn't feel I wanted that treatment. There are no horse carriages that splash crap on people anymore. I don't need a walking feces shield, thanks. But he basically ignored my lack of comfort with that and continued to explain that it's his duty to do that. He ended up eventually yelling at me and I cried and left. That was my own night to hang with people before departing. Anyways, we loosely stayed friends on Facebook just because I felt like he's a litmus test to the crazy crap the internet is doing to the opinions of people, and I'd like to keep a tab on how bad things are getting. The end. I remember walking around with a friend one night in our city a long time ago. We were both 20-ish. I was walking on the street side of the sidewalk. A random guy stopped us and lectured my friend on treating ladies right, which apparently included us switching places on the sidewalk. People and their weird, outdated ideas. Story 10. I wouldn't call myself a nice guy, but I'm a people pleaser to an unhealthy degree. My wife was the first to consistently call me out on my thoughtfulness that left her feeling overwhelmed constantly. She consistently informed me that I need to chill out and focus on myself, not on her, that she would be just fine and I can leave her alone. We're approaching 3 years married next month. Still have things to work on, but her ability to consistently and lovingly, eventually, tell me how my urge to please her was not pleasing to her was monumentally helpful. Took me a long time to understand it, and I thought I had a strong self-awareness before I met her. If you think there's a glimmer of hope there, please do your best to lovingly tell that man chill and he can chill out. It helped me to be asked if I had fears or thoughts about why I do those things, to challenge my notion of normal and let me self-reflect on it. Still took a while to get it. Ooh, this is an interesting perspective. Thanks for sharing.
Honestly, I can admit I feel a little bit called out on this one, but it is something that I work on. I do try and people please in relationships a bit, to an unhealthy degree at some points and everything. Unhealthy for, both them and myself. And yeah, it comes from a place of insecurity. I have insecurity over people wanting to be with me and stuff, and sometimes I think I try too hard, and I have to remind myself of that, and thankfully I'm in a relationship now where hopefully I don't do that too much, and if I do, oh, Madam Fax, please call me out on that crap.
Story 11. I dated one for 2 years. He seemed nice and was happy when I first started dating him because girls didn't give him a chance due to his looks. He was super nerdy. I was 16 and he was 19. He was very needy and always demanded we do what I wanted. I missed out on a lot of things, including missing out on going to see Phantom of the Opera with his mom because he didn't want to go and would get sick at the last minute. When I lost my virginity to him, he said I basically R'd him because he didn't realize he wasn't ready for something like that till after we had intercourse. About a year and a half into our relationship, he got religious. So then, whenever we had intercourse, he would pray for forgiveness afterwards. But if I refused intercourse, I was a cold B. I actually left him for a female partner, I am bi, and that's when I realized that it was a super unhealthy relationship. Never have I ever heard of someone praying after intercourse. That's like serial killer crap. Glad you're okay. Story 12. My sister did. She's a hairstylist, and one of her clients was very aggressive about asking her out. He repeatedly brought flowers, concert tickets, and other gifts, which he brought to her at work, and she said no each time because he seemed a little off. He got in a car accident and was really badly injured, and she felt sorry for him, so she went out with him finally. They dated a few months before breaking up. I don't know the exact reason why, but after that, he started stalking her. It's been over 5 years since then, and he's still keeping tabs on her. She's reported him to the police multiple times, has a restraining order, and has blocked him on Facebook/everywhere else, but every few months he finds a way to contact her. So, if you get weird vibes from someone, don't give them a chance, or you might end up with a lifelong stalker like my sister has. Story 13. Yeah, I'm about done with people trying to get in my pants out of sheer desperation. I don't think this is quite the same thing as giving them a chance because I'm already in a relationship and I'm not into anyone else, but I did put up with seriously creepy crap both before I was in a relationship and after this guy. He acted like unsolicited gifts were the way to work his way in. Even worse when I'm in a relationship already, then had multiple unintelligible meltdowns if and when I so much as mentioned my boyfriend's name. I don't get it. All I do is treat people like people with respect, and it lands me a bunch of people who only care about themselves, who want nothing more than to drop their crappy lives and poor decision-making skills on top of mine. Anyway, I'm taken, and my boyfriend is the best person in the world for me. Your second paragraph is the most tragic bit. All of my cheerful, gregarious female friends have learned to rein themselves in and be intentionally colder to strangers because otherwise they become creeper bait.
Hey folks, little content warning for this next story. It does have mention of R. And so if you are uncomfortable with that, you might want to just brace yourself knowing that it's coming, or you may want to scroll to the time code on screen to skip this story entirely.
Story 14. Yes, 2 months later, he forced me into his car, sped insanely fast with metal music blaring to a very rural area, pulled into a field, R'd me, then paced back and forth for a while. I'm guessing he was wondering if he should kill me or not. I told him what a great drive I had and suggested we get donuts. I wrote help and his nameplate number on a paper towel and stuck it to the mirror. I still have a hard time comprehending everything about that night. Just say no if someone feels off. You don't owe anyone something because they pitch a hissy. I just Facebook stalked. It appears he had intercourse with a girl from his work. The condom failed the first time they had intercourse. She married him, had 2 more kids back to back. Then went single and started posting a bunch of DV Survivor posts. It also appears her mental age is much younger than her physical one. I was certain he was trying to get me pregnant. I thought I was being weird, but I guess my instinct was right. Poor girl. Frickin' heck. 0 to 100 and holy crap fast. Story 15. I was once in a similar situation. I dated a sweet guy, but honestly, sweet is subjective. He was a gentleman, but he insisted on always opening the car door for me. He literally would not let me touch the car handle, like, at all, letting me eat first always instead of both at the same time, because honestly, it's not a biggie for me, commented that I should never cut my hair, etc. I felt like I was with a man from the 50s. It was draining to be treated like a queen instead of an equal. Other than that, he was okay. Anyway, when I broke up with him, I felt like he didn't want to let me go. Like I had to explain over and over again that I wasn't feeling it and that he deserved someone that would feel the same way about him. He hung up the phone with, "You don't know what you missed out on." Okay, I guess.
There's being nice and courteous to your partner, and there's being controlling. And like, yeah, you know what? If you're walking with them, like, you know, open a door for them. If you happen to be by the door, sure, that's wonderful. Do little things for them when you can, and when it's, you know, just a nice little additional treat. But forcing that stuff on people where it's like, no, I get the door. No, I order at the restaurant. I do this for you. You know, you shouldn't. That's taking away control from someone to the point where you're almost infantilizing them. You're treating them like a child or a pet, kind of. And it's not great. You want a partner, not I don't know what you would call that, but no.
Story 16. I finally allowed him to take me on a date to breakfast. Figured midday would be ideal to meet up in public. I offended him immediately when I spoke to the waitress. I said, "We have 2," when she asked how many we had. He insisted that she was asking him, not me, and I emasculated him in public. I laughed it off as a joke. I grew up with all brothers. Surely he was trying to be funny. We sat down. The waitress asked for our order. I gave her mine. He groaned and asked her to come back in a second. He told me proper protocol was for me to discuss what I wanted to eat with him, allow him to make the decision, and he was supposed to relay that to the waitress, not me. I told him he was crazy and left. Blocked his number, ghosted completely. Story 17. Don't know if this applies as me giving a second chance. Also, this was in my game PMs after I played a mobile game with this guy. So the start of the conversation was very generic nice guy. Started with being pretty cool, but asking for nudes when he figured out I was a girl, then saying I was a nonsense B when I refused to comply. I just said, whatever, text me later if you want gaming still. His words did a full mood swing and suddenly he's the cool gaming guy again. This did scare me though. He was very insistent on the nudes stuff and then changed. Maybe he was plotting more advances later and I actually got tired of the game, so I just ghosted him and uninstalled it. Story 8. My wife did it while she was in college. He had constant low self-esteem, which annoyed her. He also loved making fun of other people. Sounds like he was just a toxic guy. When she broke up with him, he wrote a self-termination note naming her as the reason and showed up on campus with a gun. Fortunately, nothing happened. He got some therapy and wasn't allowed back at the school. Funny how a lot of nice guys who complain about not getting a chance are just buttholes with no charisma. Story 19. Way too many times in college. I had guys in the friend zone who I decided to give a chance to because I was stupid and I felt sorry for him. The last straw was when a guy took me shopping. I said yes in lonely desperation on a Friday night. This was a Saturday afternoon. After every store I went into, he would either criticize me for not wanting him to buy me anything, I'm not much of a shopper anyways, or ask me for intercourse because he bought me a used video game I wanted. Never again. There's a good reason incels are incels.
I hate the term the friend zone because what is bad about being a friend? If you like a person, you should want to be friends. And even if you have feelings for them, but they don't seem to have feelings for you, that's not them putting you in the friend zone. That's them having romantic preferences that you don't meet, but you can still be friends. That's how that friggin' works. And I get so mad when people are just like, they put me in the friend zone. Shut up. That is I did all the right things. This isn't a dating sim, dorks. Stop it. Treat them like actual people with actual preferences. I get so mad about this crap.
Story 20. I dated a guy in high school. Relationship was okay, but it was a long distance, so we ended it amicably. He was the one that brought it up, and I agreed. Fast forward 6 months, and he randomly messages me. Everything is fine until I mention that I have a new boyfriend. The conversation did a quick 180 from, "Hi, how are you?" to, "You'll never find someone like me, and how could I start dating again so soon?" I blocked his butt real fast. And he was right. I never did find another guy like him because I married the new boyfriend and we're still together 18 years later. You'll never find someone like me. Yeah, that's the point. Story 21. I was the nice guy who got turned down for a second date. I said the same bullcrap that any nice guy says when that happens. For example, all women are the same, say they want nice guys, only date buttholes, etc. She said, well, fine, let's have that second date, but doesn't it make you feel weird to have to convince someone to date you? Don't you want someone who wants to be with you? Me, changed absolutely everything about dating for me. Story 22. A girlfriend told me that when she was still new to dating, she gave a nice guy a shot. They were in different states, and after weeks of owing him a naughty picture or video, she agreed to FaceTime him with a wink-wink agreement that things might get steamy. The day comes, and this 300-pound unwashed dude called her, 190 pounds, 5'6", nice but bigger than he liked, and suggested she started working out. He then pushed for an in-person visit near him so that he could show her the wonders of carnal things. She ghosted him shortly after that. This is a true horror comedy.
You don't owe people naughty pictures. You don't owe them intimate favors or anything like that. It doesn't matter what they do for you. Like, there needs to be communication and agreement and stuff like that. But no, just because you've I put in the requisite amount of time of talking to you and listening to you, you owe me a naughty picture now, or else you're a real bee. I don't know where you folks get this idea from. They're not prizes to be won. They are not it's not something where you have to, I did the prerequisite checklist and therefore I'm owed this. What kind of wacky logic is that? Stop it. It's gross.
Story 23. I'll clarify. I'm married. I've been married for 20 years. I get a whole slew of messages on social media from time to time from random people wanting to talk to me. Normally, I'm pretty cordial. I'm very upfront about being married. Even then, I don't mind a random chit-chat. Once I let them know I'm married, that's when I'm called a W or an S. I also get this same sentence, "You really missed out. I would have treated you like a queen." So my question is, to anyone who knows, if you've dated a guy who acted like this, how did it turn out? Story 24. Yeah, I dated one. He was of the extra rare breed, a gay nice guy. He felt entitled to intercourse and affection and just couldn't take no for an answer, and he'd randomly pick me up and carry me around to protect me because he thought it was cute. He'd give me random gifts and flowers and expected affection in return, which was very uncomfortable. Being put on a pedestal and worshipped doesn't feel right. It's weird and dehumanizing. Don't do that. A lot of odd things like that.
I do like the way that this person put it. It's dehumanizing. You're treating them property you're protecting or a child or something. Yes, you want to treat someone like they are special and important to you, but at the same time, you can't be trying to rob them of their autonomy or making them feel like, well, you need me. It's like, no, that's not romance. That's owning a pet. And even then, a pet can fend for themselves better than that.
Story 25. Yes, the tantrums continued throughout the relationship. He was very controlling. If I was out with friends, he would be upset that I was having fun without him. He ended up cheating on me and dumping me only to beg me back. He semi-stalked me for a couple of years, had an online blog about what I did each day, and tried to befriend my exes. That sounds awful. I'm glad you shook him eventually, but Jesus Christ, what a power-tripping freakazoid. Story 26. I was one until I was in my mid-20s. Raised by narcissistic parents, I had no clue how to relate to the opposite sex. I would try so hard to be a good guy, polite, accommodating, etc. Never had a clue. Painful to remember. Story 27. Yes, I did once, and I wish I didn't. He wasn't a nice guy after all. He treated me like I was the ugly one. I never felt more crappy in my whole life than when I was with him. I should have known. Story 28. I don't get it. Being treated like a queen means that you get a plot of land and subjects, right? These guys seem to do the opposite. Story 29. Does nice guy mean timidly chivalrous in public and wholeheartedly misogynistic in private? Bingo! Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.